A while back, I posted a video on my Instagram page detailing my account of being groomed at age 18 by a 37-year-old saxophonist. Since that post, I've received hundreds of messages from people all over the world sharing their stories with me. Here are some accounts from women. I took a ride home from one of my professors. He came on to me in the car and I had to get out at a stoplight. This was my entire conservatory experience. I stopped playing because of it. I was groomed by a college professor. I reported him to the school and they did nothing. He got tenure the next year. This is why I stopped playing. One of my jazz professors constantly hit on me in college, and now I have to share a bandstand with him. It's done a number on my confidence. I was sexually assaulted by my teacher. When I reported him to the school, I was told I shouldn't have been so nice to him. And here are some accounts from men. My teacher in the 70s would refer to certain musical notations using references to female body parts. This was shockingly common when I was in college in the 90s. Predators everywhere. I've witnessed women talk about this with other women, and I don't know what to do when I hear their stories. Welcome to this episode of The Business of the Music Business.
The business of the music business with Erica Von Kleist.
Well, that's a dark way to start an episode. Today we're diving into sexual harassment. How you're treated by your colleagues, mentors, and teachers can make or break whether or not you endeavor a career in music, which is super heartbreaking. Sexual harassment predominantly happens to women from men, but it can happen to anyone, and these situations are not outliers. They are just as valid and just as traumatic. My roots are as a woman in the jazz world, which is a very male-dominated field. One of the reasons why there's a dearth of female representation on stages is that the pool of women is much smaller than men. And despite the many efforts in jazz education to support and recruit young women, so few of those girls end up taking the plunge into jazz in college and beyond. Why? One of the reasons is a lack of female representation in jazz academia. I took it upon myself to look up the websites of 75 collegiate jazz programs nationwide, and I analyzed their faculty lineups. After some number crunching, I discovered that only 11% of jobs in jazz academia are held by women, and only 4.1% of jobs are held by female jazz instrumentalists. Here's what that looks like on a pie chart. I think it's safe to assume that if young female jazz musicians don't see women in academia, many are less likely to want to pursue jazz as a career or even see it as a career option. Another reason why women have difficulty pursuing or continuing jazz professionally is sexual harassment. First off, sexual harassment is defined as behavior characterized by the making of unwelcome and inappropriate sexual remarks or physical advances in the workplace or professional or social situation. But it's much deeper than this. Let's explore the levels of sexual harassment. Level 1, jokes. In order to make music and collaborate as artists, we must spend an immense amount of time together in rehearsals, gigs, and on the road. I think we all know how dirty the jokes can get. Have you seen my comedy work? When it crosses the line is when the jokes make someone feel small, marginalized, or ostracized. Level 2, harassment. Repeatedly making comments about someone's appearance is a prime example. There's a difference between, wow, nice outfit, and your ass looks great in those pants, sweetie. Physical advancements like repeatedly trying to put your arm around someone, putting your hand on their leg, touching their hair, or other actions in an effort to get attention or gratification, or anything that makes someone feel grossed out, is harassment. Level 3, grooming. My Instagram video gives a play-by-play of what I experienced having been groomed. Grooming is the act of preparing someone by gaining their trust in an effort to establish a sexual relationship. It takes time and a lot of patience and planning, which is what makes it so disgusting. A typical groomer will find a young, naive victim, lure them with a sense of friendship or mentorship, and then start making moves. Subtly at first, with the goal of easing into a sexual encounter or relationship. The victim often feels like they can trust this person and might even develop feelings for their groomer. This complicates things because often any sexual encounters can only be deemed consensual, assuming the victim is above the age of consent, giving the victim little or no recourse once they realize they've been preyed upon. Gross, right? Level 4, assault. There are many definitions of assault, but generally it involves one individual forcing themselves on another for their own sexual gratification. It can range from unwanted touching, kissing, or to sex in any form. Sexual assault is horrific, violating, life-changing, and can lead to depression, PTSD, and a host of other issues. 1 in every 6 American women are victims of attempted or completed rape in their lifetimes. How do we stop this? In 3 parts. Part 1, the easy solution. Don't harass, groom, or assault people. Part 2, awareness. 'Cause groomers are gonna groom, how women and everyone else can recognize the warning signs of harassment. Here's a short list of possible scenarios in academia and beyond. Someone in rehearsal is cracking off-color jokes.
Haha, boobies.
This might not be sexual harassment, but it can be uncomfortable and marginalizing. Your private teacher puts their hand on your back in a lesson, probably correcting your posture. Usually fine. But if your private teacher, say, puts his hand on your leg and your leg has nothing to do with your playing your instrument and it feels gross, that is harassment. Some professors hang with students outside of class, which can result in some really great conversations and lessons. But if your prof asks you out and it's not to talk about an assignment, or if it feels date-like, this could be a sign of grooming, especially if they're way older than you and it's coupled with texts or calls that are unrelated to school. Your bandmate offers to drive you home from a gig and while in the car forces his hands all over you and tries to kiss you without consent. This is assault. You get your ass smacked by someone in the band. Whether it was done jokingly or not, it's definitely harassment, technically assault. You overhear 2 bandmates talking about your boobs behind your back.
Haha, boobies.
This is sexual harassment. A professor uses you as a scapegoat for his pent-up aggression. This is bullying. And while this might not be sexual in nature, it's definitely a power play and has no place in education or on the bandstand. Part 3, how to stop it. The most important thing we can do is to talk about it. If you're being harassed, it's not your fault. You are the victim. You have every right to be heard. But here's the tricky part. Often, victims of assault are in a bind. If they say something, they might face legal issues if they don't have certain proof. Some victims also fear that they'll be ostracized by their colleagues, especially if they're the only female. And in academia, whether or not your institution will actually do something about the reported behavior is a crapshoot, as schools often cover up incidents in an effort to avoid negative press. Many of the women who responded to my video said that their schools did absolutely nothing to stop their teachers' behavior, or in some cases, forced them to stop talking about it by threatening them with legal woes. This results in women not wanting to make their voices heard, and in some cases, simply quit playing, which to me is the greatest tragedy here. If everyone knows the signs to look for, the fewer places these creepers have to hide. Oh, and remember those douchebags talking about your boobs behind your back? Well, if you don't feel comfortable saying something in the moment, wait 10 years, write them into a musical entitled Sorry, have them portrayed by 2 spineless sleazebags, and call out their behavior in a featured number called Boobs.
Between tits and ass, you know which one we choose.
While the vast majority of professionals working in our industry are wonderful people, it takes just a small percentage of jerks to ruin a gig, educational experience, or a career. Every musical environment should be a safe place, and the more allyship we have, the less likely we all are to experience harassment, or worse. I hope you found this episode of The Business of the Music Business informative. My name is Erica Von Kleist, and thank you for watching.